Most men are walking through life on autopilot. They wake up, grind, distract themselves, and repeat, never once questioning whether the habits running their life are building something or slowly destroying them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The habits you refuse to build will become the regrets you cannot escape. And the worst part, nobody is coming to warn you. Your friends won't tell you. Your family might not even see it. Wake up now. By the time most men figure out what actually matters, they've already wasted decades chasing things that never mattered at all. Tonight, we're going to walk through 8 habits that separate boys who aged from men who actually grew up. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. These aren't productivity hacks or morning routines. These are the deep, uncomfortable shifts that change everything, and most guys don't learn them until it's almost too late. Emotional ownership. Here's the first habit that separates grown men from boys who simply got older: taking complete ownership of your emotional world. Most guys were raised with one unspoken rule: don't feel. Anger was acceptable. Everything else was weakness, and so we built walls. We numbed ourselves with work, with alcohol, with screens, with anything that kept us from sitting alone with our own thoughts. And behind that wall, something was rotting. The grown man learns to name what he feels, not to broadcast it to the world, but to understand it. When you can say, "I'm not angry, I'm actually afraid," you've done something most men never do. You've told yourself the truth. Emotional awareness is not weakness, it is the foundation of real strength. Jung himself spent years exploring his own emotional depths, and what he found there transformed psychology forever. Anger reflected becomes power. The man who cannot sit with his own sadness will run from every meaningful relationship he ever has. He'll sabotage love, avoid depth, and wonder why everything feels hollow. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But owning your emotions is just the beginning, because what you do with that awareness determines everything else. Silence as power. The second habit most men learn far too late is the power of silence. Not the awkward kind, not the passive-aggressive kind. The deliberate, strategic silence of a man who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Silent. Young men talk to impress. They fill every gap in conversation with opinions nobody asked for. They argue to win, not to understand. They announce their goals to everyone who will listen, and then wonder why the motivation disappears. The grown man understands that silence is not emptiness, it's fullness held back. Speak less, win more. When someone insults you and you don't react, that's not weakness. That's the most terrifying strength there is. When you stop announcing your plans and start executing in silence, the results speak louder than any words ever could. Seneca understood this deeply. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Most of the battles men fight with their words didn't need to be fought at all. If these truths about silence are resonating with you right now, hit like and subscribe to keep unlocking the habits that change everything. Because what comes next is something most men never even consider. Choosing solitude. The third habit is one that terrifies most men. Choosing solitude, not loneliness. Solitude, there's a world of difference. Loneliness is the feeling that nobody wants you. Solitude is the choice to be with yourself because you're finally someone worth being alone with. A man who cannot be alone with himself will always be at the mercy of others. Most guys fill every moment with noise. Podcasts while driving, music while working, scrolling before sleep, not because they love content, but because the silence terrifies them. Because in silence the questions come. Am I on the right path? Am I becoming who I want to be? Do I even know who that is? And those questions demand answers most men aren't ready to give. The philosopher Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." That was written in the 1600s, and it's more true today than ever. The grown man schedules time alone, not to scroll, not to consume, to think, to reflect, to let the thoughts he's been running from finally catch up. And when they do, he doesn't flinch. But solitude reveals something else that most men refuse to face. Dropping the mask. The fourth habit is perhaps the most painful one: dropping the mask. Every man wears one. The mask that says "I'm fine" when you're not. The mask that laughs at the joke that actually hurt. The mask that pretends you have it all together when inside, everything is falling apart. Remove the mask. We build these masks in childhood. We learn that vulnerability gets punished, that asking for help means you're not enough, that real men handle everything alone, and so we performed strength, we performed confidence, We performed a version of ourselves that everyone else would accept, but here's what nobody tells you. The mask that protects you from the world is the same mask that prevents the world from knowing you. Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear, and he warned that the man who identifies too closely with his persona loses himself entirely. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The grown man learns that authenticity isn't about being an open book with everyone. It's about being honest with yourself first. It's about admitting when you're struggling instead of pretending you're invincible. Real strength is removing the armor, not adding more layers. And once you drop the mask, something unexpected happens. You discover what actually needs to be built. Building alone. The fifth habit separates dreamers from builders. It's the habit of building when nobody is watching. No audience, no applause, no validation. Just you, your vision, and the daily grind that nobody sees. Build. Most men only work hard when someone is looking. They perform effort in public and collapse in private. They post the hustle but skip the work. They talk about the life they want at dinner parties but never spend a single Saturday afternoon actually creating it. The grown man builds in silence. He understands that the compound effect of daily discipline is the most powerful force on earth. Every empire was built in the hours nobody saw and the days nobody cared. As Aristotle taught, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. This means your results are never about the one big moment. They're about the 10,000 invisible ones that came before. Daily grind builds empires. The man who writes one page every day has a book in a year. The man who waits for inspiration has nothing but excuses. The man who saves a little every month builds freedom. The man who spends to impress builds a prison. But building alone reveals a truth that changes what you tolerate. Cutting dead weight. The sixth habit is brutal, and most men avoid it for years. Cutting dead weight from your life. The people you refuse to release are the anchors dragging you to the bottom. This isn't about being cold, it's about being honest. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they growing? Are they challenging you? Are they building something? Or are they stuck in the same loops they were in 5 years ago, pulling you into the same conversations about the same complaints? The grown man understands that loyalty without boundaries is self-destruction. You can love someone and still recognize that their presence in your life is costing you your future. Seneca was ruthless about this. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. This applies to friendships, relationships, even family members who drain your energy with constant negativity. You do not owe your growth to people who refuse to grow with you. Setting boundaries doesn't make you heartless. It makes you serious about the life you're building. Guard your circle, and once you've cleared the dead weight, you finally have the space for something most men never learn. Health is wealth. The seventh habit is the one men sacrifice first and regret last, treating your body like the foundation it is, not for vanity, not for Instagram, for the simple fact that everything you want to build in this life requires a body that can carry it. Body is the temple. Most young men treat their health like an infinite credit card. They eat garbage, skip sleep, abuse stimulants, ignore their mental health, and assume they'll fix it later. But later never comes the way you think. It comes as the heart attack at 52, the depression that swallows your 30s, the chronic pain that steals your 40s. A man who destroys his body in his youth borrows energy from his future self, and the interest rate is devastating. The grown man moves his body not because he wants to look good, but because he knows that physical discipline creates mental clarity. As the ancient Greeks believed, a sound mind requires a sound body. No citizen has a right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. Your body is not separate from your ambition, it is the vehicle that carries it. Every skipped workout is a vote against your future self. Every processed meal is a small betrayal. The man who masters his body earns the right to master everything else. But there's one final habit that ties them all together. Accepting death. The eighth and final habit is the one that unlocks all the others, and it's the one most men spend their entire lives avoiding. Death. Not thinking about it morbidly, not fearing it, accepting it deeply, completely, using it as the compass that points you toward what actually matters. You are going to die, and you have no idea when. The Stoics practiced this daily. They called it memento mori, remember that you will die, not as a dark exercise, as the most liberating practice a human being can embrace. Because when you truly internalize that your time is finite, every petty argument dissolves, every grudge becomes absurd, Every day spent doing something you hate becomes an unforgivable waste. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote to himself every night, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." The man who remembers death every morning wastes nothing and fears no one. This is not pessimism, this is the ultimate freedom. When death sits on your shoulder, you stop living for other people's opinions. You stop postponing the conversation, the dream, the change. Memento mori. You start living as if today might be your last, because one day you'll be right. 8 habits, 8 shifts that most men don't make until life forces them to. Owning your emotions instead of running from them. Using silence as your greatest weapon. Choosing solitude over noise. Dropping the mask you've been hiding behind. Building when nobody is watching. Cutting the dead weight that holds you back. Treating your body like the foundation it is. And accepting the one truth that sets everything else free, that this life has an expiration date. Grow or die trying. These aren't habits you adopt once and forget. They're daily choices, daily battles, and the men who fight them don't just age, they evolve. As Nietzsche once declared, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." You now have the map. The question is whether you'll use it or let it collect dust like every other piece of advice you've heard and ignored. If you made it this far, comment grown MAN to prove you're among the few who are serious about becoming who they were meant to be. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well. If this unlocks something in you, hit like and subscribe. The vault has more.